Hey everyone, and welcome back. So today I want to talk about Bitcoin and just the overall crypto market because we started to see a little bit of pullback in the market after what's been a pretty decent run up over the past several weeks. And so I want to talk a little bit about that. It seems like there's been kind of a general bit of uncertainty in the market. And I would say probably maybe an unreasonable amount of uncertainty in the market, just given kind of the performance that we've seen. Now, this is offset a little bit by, some of the struggles that we've seen through alts and things like that. But overall, I think the cryptocurrency market is in a generally good position. It's just with the U.S. election and, the possible prospect of wars and a lot of this other type of stuff kind of potentially on the horizon, there is definitely some general sense of uncertainty that people aren't totally comfortable with. And I think this is fair. And you can kind of see this, at least to a degree, kind of in just the wider financial markets as well. So anyway, to kind of go through and talk about a little bit of that, I've got a couple charts and pieces of data that we can look at to show that at least Bitcoin specifically looks to be in a pretty solid spot. And I think the kind of the maybe overreactive selling of some of these smaller alts does kind of make sense in a way, just because of the volatility and the uncertainty that we're seeing kind of in the global market right now. So let's go ahead and dive right in. So starting out, what we can see is looking at crypto bubbles, as I kind of already mentioned, we've seen a pretty decent pullback of alts today. This has kind of been this way over for the past several days. Things have not been looking super great. I mean, we can see, Bitcoin right here up almost 1%. We can see that Ethereum, again, is about almost 1% as well. But a lot of the smaller alts, basically almost all the rest of the alt market is definitely down and has been now for the week and the month so far. Still positive on the year, but the week and the month have turned to red. And I think this is just from some larger selling off that we've seen within the market. If we look at Bitcoin itself has actually performed pretty well, and we can kind of see this in how Bitcoin dominance looks, right? So what we've seen is we basically saw a low in about November 2022, when Bitcoin dominance hit about 38%. Well, now we have basically, you can see, it's just been kind of up only as far as Bitcoin dominance is concerned, meaning that everything has, well, maybe not everything, right? But if you were to take a whole bucket of the alt market of basically anything that's not Bitcoin and held it against Bitcoin, you would have lost. And so, obviously there have been some that have outperformed Bitcoin itself, but basically everything has only bled to Bitcoin. And we can see that with Bitcoin dominance being almost at 60% at this point in time. 59.33 is kind of where we're at. So obviously, things looking pretty good for Bitcoin. If we look at the chart, similar type of thing, we can see we had this descending channel. We've talked about this, several times on the channel. And what we can see is we've broken out of the descending channel, but we've kind of had some pullbacks on the way up, right? And what we can see, there's a couple of things that I want to look at specifically here that are pretty interesting. So first thing we can see overall is we have in fact broken out of the descending channel. At this point in time right here on this candle on the 29th of October, we got only within a couple $100 of breaking all-time highs, which is really quite fantastic, of course. And so, we almost broke all-time highs here. We've seen the chart show pretty decent strength, but in the past couple of days we have kind of seen this pullback, and I think it's starting to breed a little bit of uncertainty, and ultimately I think part of this is not actually from people looking at the chart itself per se, but it's more of the uncertainty of a potentially expanding war in the Middle East, that Israel and Iran have continued kind of hitting back and forth at each other. From what it sounds like, Iran might potentially be conducting another attack. You have China, who it sounds like there are whispers that they're going to be releasing a $1.4 trillion stimulus package, which is 3 to 4 times larger than their next previous stimulus package in the past. And you have to keep in mind, one of these previous stimulus packages that they released in the past was when their largest real estate developer went bankrupt, right? So if they're doing something that is kind of 3 times in magnitude from that type of situation, obviously, that breeds a little bit of concern. Also, we do have the U.S. presidential election. We have one candidate that has been very openly and outwardly pro-crypto. We've had another candidate who's been, I guess, more kind of neutral, but it is in part of a current administration that has been very hostile and unreliable, I guess, or generally unfriendly toward crypto. And so there is kind of one way is good, one way is maybe not bad, but probably bad, just based on kind of some of the actions that we've seen so far. So there's kind of a lot of different things going on in the market right now. But as we can see from this general uptrend, it is holding this uptrend pretty consistently ever since the beginning of September. We're now in the beginning of November, so it's almost held this for 2 months straight at this point in time. We can see a tiny little bit of a wick below this, but overall doing quite well. And what we can see is if we were to pull this out toward the end of the year, we hit about $86,500 as the price at the end of the year. Again, continuing with the price of Bitcoin continuing to kind of follow this trajectory. I mean, it's held it for another 2 months. Can it hold it for another two and do, kind of get it there? Maybe. Is it going to go down? Maybe. Is it going to go, is this low and we're going to see over 100,000 or 200,000 or whatever? Who knows? But overall, if we continue to hold this trend, 86,500 is kind of where it would put us. I seem to think that we may potentially, I don't think this is going to hold, if I'm being completely honest. I think there's a lot of pent up, volatility just kind of sitting and waiting for some of these things to unfold. Obviously, the China thing, this happens, I believe, on Thursdays when we figure out some answers for that. The Israel-Iran thing, that will either work itself out or maybe it won't. That's going to be kind of a continually evolving situation. And then obviously within the U.S., the election will be figured out, maybe on Tuesday. If it's close, it sounds like maybe it may drag on later into the week. But essentially, we're going to have a lot of clarity for a lot of these major things, basically by come Friday, I would say, is kind of like a conservative guess of when that would all be figured out. So also, if you are interested, as you can see that this has all been done on BTCC. I have been using BTCC a little bit more just because I partnered up with them for the month of November. BTCC is a really cool and interesting exchange that I actually quite like. Not only do they do leverage trading up to 500x, but you're also able to do spot trading, as well as something really neat that I found the other day, which is tokenized stocks. So if you're wanting to trade tokenized stocks, maybe because you don't have access to the US equities exchanges, or you just want to trade in crypto because you have your money in crypto and you don't want to deal with pulling it out of crypto and moving it over to a brokerage account, all that type of stuff, BTCC is really great for all of that. So if you are interested, I do have a link in the description below. Feel free to go and get signed up using that link. And they've got, I believe, a $30 bonus just for getting signed up. And then they have a whole bunch of other incentives. As you can see right now, they've got up to a $10 million prize pool that they're splitting of USDT. So if you are interested, feel free to sign up in the description below. I would imagine, regardless of kind of the results of a lot of these different things, obviously if China kind of goes more aggressive, that might be bullish for crypto because more liquidity is getting pumped into just kind of the global ecosystem. If Trump wins, that's probably going to be a good thing for crypto. If both of those things happen together, crypto probably goes nuts and we may be at 86,000 by the end of the week. If Kamala wins and maybe China steps back on kind of the amount of stimulus they're going to be pumping into their economy, maybe we start to see things kind of drop a little bit more dramatically. A lot to potentially think about here, but ultimately things are looking pretty good. And one reason, kind of now looking at the green lines here, what we can see is, and I'll zoom in for this, what we can see looking at the green lines here is we have RSI here on the bottom, and RSI is the relative strength index. And so usually what happens with RSI is as price goes, or technically on a stable asset, if price were to go up from here to here, RSI would go up from here to here, kind of generally what we're seeing right here. But one thing that you can tell sometimes, particularly when you're looking over long periods of time like this, which is about the past 6 weeks, what we can see is Bitcoin overall has gone from 57,000 to over 70,000, or well over 70,000 at this point. But at this point right here, about 69,000. So a $12,000 increase, which is, what is that, close to 20%, while RSI has stayed almost stable at this point in time, right? Obviously, at this point, we're at 48, and here we're at 54. So gone up a tiny bit, but not even close to the level that we've gone up kind of over this 6 weeks. And generally, this is seen as a very, very good sign when people are looking at kind of the relative strength of an asset, right? We continue to see the price go up, but the relative strength, obviously, it peaks kind of here and there, but when price comes down, relative strength comes down even more. Effectively, you could think about it like this is a wall, right? And anything between here and here is cushion. So the higher you go and the more that this drops, the more cushion you're giving yourself before you hit another wall, right? So for example, if you go up to 100,000, you hit the wall, and then you come back down to 90 and you're all the way down on the bottom here, this is giving you a lot more space than if you hit 100,000 and you come down to 90 and it stays right up here, right? Because you don't have a ton of space to move within this kind of cushion before you hit that wall again. It's a little bit more complex than that, but I feel like that's a kind of a relatively simple way to explain RSI and why seeing a general uptrend in price with either a general downtrend or even just staying kind of level-ish in RSI is a really good thing to see. This is usually what we call like a bullish divergence. And so this is something I've been keeping my eye on. And what we can see is this has been pretty consistent for like the past 6 weeks. So this is not like, oh, well, this just happened for like a day and now this is so cool, right? Like this is a continual thing that we've been seeing within the price of Bitcoin over the past month and a half. And so this is a really good thing that I'm keeping my eye on. And I've been pleased to see that it's been holding and kind of doing relatively well so far. The next thing that I wanted to look at that kind of supports what we're seeing here is the exchange liquidation map, right? Usually, as I know, this has kind of been a mainstay on the channel for kind of what we've seen so far. And this is kind of for good reason, right? I mean, I also tend to have this bias that the markets generally like to move in the way that causes maximum pain, right? What causes maximum pain, in my opinion? Liquidating people, right? And what causes maximum pain within the market at large? Liquidating as many people as humanly possible, right? I feel like that makes kind of sense, and that's kind of pretty intuitive. And so what we're seeing with these liquidation maps is I like to kind of see where the most people get liquidated, and that can kind of give me at least a level of indication of like where this price is going to go, right? We don't know for sure, but it's probably going to go that way at least some point in time, just because if you've been following the channel for a while, you know that this has worked incredibly accurately over the past probably 3 or 4 months at this point. So, this is something that I continue to lean on until it seems to like not be useful anymore, right? But what I've always said when using this is we always want to wait for a point of confluence between the three, because when we see that, that's usually when we get a pretty good sense that that's where it's going to go, right? And what we're seeing right now is not that, right? So we can see here definitely favoring a move to the downside to liquidate some more longs. On the 7-day, we can see the exact opposite. We've actually flipped to where liquidating shorts actually makes the most sense for like a move of maximum pain, right? And on the 30-day, we're flipped again to, moving to the downside and liquidating longs. And so when we see things like this, especially where like the 30 days is relatively skewed toward liquidating longs, the 7 days relatively skewed towards liquidating shorts, and then the 1 day is, it's a little biased towards liquidating longs, but it's more balanced than kind of what we've seen in the past, right? Usually when we see something like this, it doesn't give me a lot of confidence that this is like, that we have a clear direction on the market, right? And I think kind of given the overall volatility and uncertainty within the market yet, that's just exactly what's happening, right? You have people who are longing the market because they're just absolutely certain Trump's going to win, and that's going to immediately send Bitcoin to 100K. So they're doing some like leveraged long trading. You have the other people who are just absolutely certain that Kamala's going to win, and they think that that's going to be bad for crypto potentially, and so they're doing 100x shorts on the market because it's going to go to 20,000 tomorrow or whatever, right? I mean, any of these things are possible. To move away from the U.S. election, you could look at something with like the Middle East, right? People think that a war in the Middle East would be bad for crypto, right? Okay, well, if you think that that's just all but certain going to happen, then maybe shorting the market makes a little bit of sense, because that's going to push the crypto market down, at least within the short term, right? Right now, what we're seeing is people are placing their bets, but there's no general like consensus on where people think it's going to go. And so there's no real one way that is going to be like drawing the liquidations, right? Hopefully that makes sense. But what we can see kind of moving on here is people, it's not like people are going away, right? Like the market, people are still very interested within the crypto market. There's a couple things I wanted to take a look at here. This one is just Bitcoin open interest and volume. What we can see is we've pulled back, so to speak, in terms of open interest, but this is still higher than any previous all-time high, this is where we were here. So that was 39.3 billion. We can see right now we're at 39.9 billion, pulling back from an all-time high of about 43.6 billion. So definitely a ton of interest, money continuing to pour into Bitcoin over time. Again, if we pull this back out, we can see it's basically, continue to go up in terms of open interest. If we look at terms of the total crypto market, again, this kind of plays into the fact of Bitcoin dominance, right? And that we've seen Bitcoin essentially run the market, and there's no signs that that's going to stop, at least anytime soon, because what we can see for the total market, all-time highs also peaked in around late March of about 81 billion of open interest. Our most recent high was at 77. So we still haven't seen that total amount of open interest come back into the market for just the total crypto market. It's still definitely kind of biased toward Bitcoin specifically. So anyway, that's kind of what we're seeing with the market right now. Hopefully it's helpful. If it is, please do give me a like and subscribe. It really does help me out, push me further into the algorithm and get more people to interact with me, things like that. I do spend quite a bit of time, consistently researching, new projects, what's going, keeping up to date with what's going on in the crypto market, things like that. And so if you do appreciate the work that I do put in, a subscribe and a like really, really does help me out, just because it helps me continue to grow the channel. So, if you do that, I'd really appreciate it. Also, if you have any comments, questions, concerns, anything like that, just drop them in the comment section below. I do try to read and respond to all of the comments that I get. So if you have anything that you want me to see or want my opinion on, stuff like that, just feel free to drop in the comment section below. Anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you in the next video.